most influential guitarist of his time. He often combined different styles of music such as blues, rock, and classical to create his own style of rock. His employment of the pentatonic, blues, major, natural minor, harmonic minor, and diminished scales added to the vast tonal qualities he created on this guitar. Together with these characteristics, his astonishing technical abilities, and his great love of music, Randy assured himself distinguishing admiration and respect among musicians worldwide. Okay, before we show you his licks, let's talk about a couple scales Randy used. The most basic scale Randy used was the pentatonic scale. That's what I have over here on this page, like this. Now this pattern right here that I'm pointing at, the second pattern, is the most common one used, and that looks like this. It's often referred to as the blues scale also. Now what I did on the patterns is I wrote out the 5 basic fingering patterns for the pentatonic scale. I have 3 of them on this page. You can put your machine on pause to copy them down. And then over here on the following page I have the concluding 2. Now these are all written out in the key of A, and you can transpose them to other keys once you have the patterns down. The next scale Randy used quite oftenly was the major scale. And that's these guys right here. And all these patterns right here are worth getting down because they're all real usable. And again, these are in the key of A. We've got 3 patterns here, and got the concluding 2 right here. Now for a lot of the long legato runs that Randy did, he used a concept with the major scale consisting of 3 notes per string, as in this page right here. And this one he used for a lot of his real fast runs, like this. Okay, and this is a real handy way of playing the scales real fast. So you got 3 of them there. And again, we have 3 more. And we have the last one right here. Now if you notice, these 3 notes per string scales end up having 7 patterns. That's because there's a scale built off of each note in the major scale. And since the major scale has 7 notes, there's going to be 7 different patterns. Before we begin, let's get tuned up. Here's a high E. Second string or your B string. Third string or your G. Fourth string or the D string. Fifth string or the A. And finally the 6th string E string. Here's lick number 1. Okay, that was a pentatonic lick in the key of G. Now the pentatonic scale is using, if you refer back to the beginning of the video, was the pattern number 2. Okay, this is basically a pentatonic lick in the key of G with a little bit of chromaticism going from this note right there in the lick. Now I'm going to play it again slowly and we'll check that out. Here's lick number 2. Okay, this is a nice little lick in the key of A minor. Starts out outlining an A minor chord, or playing an A minor arpeggio at the beginning. Okay, if you don't know what an arpeggio is, basically it's just the notes of a chord played separately, or consecutively, one after another. And the lick concludes on a Aeolian pattern with a little bit of blues note, or blues type playing when you add the blues note into it. Now let's check it out real slow and hear what it sounds like again. Okay, then again we combine a lot of different things. We're starting out with an arpeggio, going into a scalier lick, and then coming out of it on a little blues pattern right here. Here's lick number 3. Okay, in lick number 3 we're getting into some two-handed playing. Now what I'm doing there is I'm tapping with my second finger in the 17th fret and then doing pull-offs real fast like that. I'll show you a couple alternatives we can do with that same lick right there. You can do trills with just your left hand like this. Which is a pretty cool idea. And you can also double hammer on, which is a real neat idea also, like this. Okay, those are two or a couple different ideas you can do with that lick. Okay, now let's check it out real slow. Here's lick number 4. Okay, then again it shows Randy's using a lot of blues-influenced licks, followed by some classical-sounding scalar licks. Now, at the beginning of that, the first measure of that one consisted of a blues lick in B minor, and the important thing to consider at the end of it is the triplet type ideas in the last bar. Okay, let's check it out real slow again. Here's lick number 5. Okay, that's a great example of combining a regular picking technique lick with some two-handed playing. Okay, now what I'm doing on that, after I do the bend, is I'm tapping again with my second finger, but you always have the alternative of tapping with your first finger. And if you want to do that, what you'll have to do is stash the pick in your second finger like that. This is a Van Halen technique, Jimi Hendrix technique. Let's check it out again real slow. Here's lick number 6. Okay, that's a good example of what I was talking about earlier about the 3-note per string concept. Okay, what Randy's doing on this one is he's picking the first note on the string and then hammering on his second finger followed by his fourth finger. And he does that same procedure across all 6 strings. Okay, this is a real useful lick and playing real fast. A lot of other guitar players in rock these days use this technique a lot. Let's check it out again real slow. Here's lick number 7. Okay, that lick's in the key of A minor, and some of the important things to remember in that, or the important uses that Randy takes advantage of, is a lot of pull-offs. Now this sound with a lot of pull-offs gives you a real legato sound like this. You can get a lot of notes with a few pick strokes and it sounds real smooth. Okay, that's the first half of the lick right there. The second half consists of a pedal tone idea, which is used a lot in classical music, where he's quite influenced by. Another idea you can do the pedal tones would be to do something like this. Okay, there's a lot of different ideas, applications you can use with that technique. Now let's check out the lick again real slow. Here's lick number 8. There's a good example of what Randy did a lot, of playing a lick and moving it chromatically up or down the neck. Okay, now this lick right here is a diminished lick. It's actually in a diminished scale. Okay, now real slowly what's happening is this. Okay, here's lick number 9. Okay, this lick right here is in basically G sharp minor pentatonic, and the important things to remember there is just that you're moving from the first position of your pentatonic scales into the second pattern, and we're combining a little bit of blues flavor on the 4th note. So let's check that one out again real slow. Here's lick number 10. Okay, that's a good example of what Randy does using a sequence pattern in scales. Now the pattern he used in this one is the pattern of thirds. Basically what thirds is just going down to the 3rd note below the note you're playing, like this. Then doing the same on the next note. Keep proceeding down the scale like that. Makes a nice little exercise too. A lot of violin players, classical players use that a lot to warm up with. They take that pattern through all the scale positions. So it sounds good descending and ascending. Let's check it out both ways. Okay, now let's check out the lick again real slow. Here's lick number 11. Okay, in that lick, Randy's using a combination of different scales. The first part he's doing with his left hand is combining an E Dorian or E minor scale with the E blues scale, which gives it a pretty interesting sound. It also makes the left hand fingering real simple because it's the same pattern across all 3 strings. The following lick with the whammy bar comes up the neck and resolves on the major 3rd of E, which is a good blues tone to add to give it a real bluesy characteristic. So let's check the lick out again real slow. Here's lick number 12. Okay, again, there's the use of the whammy bar, followed by a chromatic line going like this. And it shows, again, Randy using a chromatic lick, or moving a lick chromatically down the scale or up the scale. If you take any lick, you can really do a lot with it chromatically because it's a real motion type line. It really feels like it's drawing you to a certain point as long as you resolve it on a good note. Here's a little lick right here you can check out. It's kind of like a Gary Moore lick that a lot of guitar players use a lot. And you move this chromatically, it has a real nice effect. something like that. Now let's check out again Randy's lick, and we'll do this one real slow. Lick 13. Okay, that's a nice combination of a blues lick followed by a scalier lick, running straight down the A major scale. Now I'd like to take a second here to show you one thing. The blues lick at the beginning is in the key of F minor, but if you check it out, the scale part of the lick descends in A major scale. Now the reason those two work is because F minor is a relative minor to the key of A major. In other words, if you start the A major scale on the sixth tone, which is F sharp, you're going to find that that builds an F minor or F sharp minor scale. Therefore, that's how the two work together. Now, the speed in the second part, the descending riff, most of your speed is going to come from your right hand. And a couple of tips I can give you on that would be on holding the pick. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. A lot of guitar players pick real differently, but I've experimented with a lot of different ways and come up with a couple that I think will work real good for you. One of them is to hold the pick pointed upwards towards the ceiling like this. Okay, this way right here, basically when you're pointing the pick at an angle, it cuts across the string real simple or real quickly and allows the pick to glide over the strings like this. Something like that. Now the next way we can also pick is having the pick pointed basically the same, almost the total opposite direction, right down towards the floor like this. And this again will allow you the same technique. It'll allow the pick to glide over the string. And you can do a lot of real fast licks like that. Check this one out. Let's do lick 13 slow. Lick 14. In that lick, what we're doing is basically going up a D major scale in a pattern of 4 notes at a time, and we're moving it up in some type of sequence. Basically, we're moving it up a third at a time. Now let's check it out real slow, and we'll examine that. Here's lick 15. That's a great combination of different techniques right there. The first part of the lick was using a blues lick in E minor, followed by an E major, an E minor triad arpeggio repeating over and over again, ending on an E diminished like this. Now the combination of those turns out to be a really nice sounding lick. Let's check it out real slow. Lick 16. Okay, there's a good example of an arpeggio played again in one of Randy's solos. Now the arpeggio he's using there is an E major arpeggio with, and he's also adding the 6. Now if you check out the third note in the scale, it's the minor third, which isn't in an E major arpeggio, but it kind of gives it a real bluesy sound. Like that, which adds a nice characteristic to it. Now what I'm doing with the picking hand on that is I'm sweeping across the strings. I'm doing 4 downstrokes consecutively like this. Now the advantage of sweep picking is it allows you to play a lot of notes real fast, basically one note per string. A lot of arpeggios are set up that way. A lot of guitar players use that technique for those. Let's check out a couple like that. This is a real common one to use right here. It's an A minor arpeggio. What I'm doing on that is I'm using sweep picking for that. I'm doing 5 downstrokes and 5 up. Let's check it out again. This time I want to show you what it really can do. Like that. And just for the heck of it, here's an A major. This is another good one to practice with. An A major real fast. Here's lick 16 slow. Here's lick 17. Okay, there's another good example of an arpeggio that Randy Rhoads used sometimes. Basically, the arpeggio or the chord that it's outlined is an F major chord. Okay, the first note of the lick would be the third of F, going up to the fifth, up to the sixth, and up to the root again, and then the rest of it's just repeating. Like that, and then the concluding part of the lick is basically based around the Mixolydian mode. Okay, so let's check it out again real slow. Lick 18. Yeah, important thing to remember in this one is it starts out with a little bit of sweep picking right at the front of the lick. Okay, if you look at your notation in your book, you're going to find that those first 2 notes are written real small. In other words, those are what they call ghost notes. They want you to play them real fast, almost so you don't even hear them. And the concluding part of the lick is based around A harmonic minor into an A blues and back into the A harmonic minor scale. I think where Randy might have gotten that idea from is from a violin player, I believe in the 1700s, named Paganini, where he did a lot of arpeggio playing and a lot of scalar playing. One of the caprices that he did started out with an arpeggio using ghost notes at the beginning of the arpeggio. And let's check that out. Okay, basically what I'm doing on that is just playing an A minor arpeggio and rushing the first 2 notes. Going into an E minor, excuse me, an E major arpeggio. So it'll be like that. So let's check out lick 18 again real slow. Here's lick 19. There we have it again, some more arpeggios that Randy used a lot. This time he's using the 2-hand technique on that. Okay, basically the first one is just a D minor arpeggio, going into a B flat major, going down to a C major, and resolving on an F major. Let me show you another way we can play that not using the 2-hand technique. This way is basically just playing these little triad shapes up here. Let's check out 19 again real slow. and lick number 20. Okay, in lick 20, what Randy's doing is combining two different scales again. He's combining the D harmonic minor with the D blues. If you refer back to some of the other licks in the tape, you're going to find that he's always combining scales, preferably the blues scale, the Aeolian minor, the Dorian minor, or the harmonic minor. Okay, now the concluding part of the lick outlines a B flat major chord like this. Or basically this shape right here. So your D bar chord.